I didn't think that you could lose money in the cloud computing world, but apparently you can if you're Google Cloud. Are they just getting crushed by AWS and Azure?
Well, you have to be careful with some of these numbers, right? Because a lot of the hardware that's in place, Google was going to have anyway, right? Because they needed to support their own infrastructure. And then in theory, they're kind of renting out the space they're not using. So you'd expect them to have a certain amount of investment in it. And so a negative number like this isn't really bad on the company. But where it is bad is that, they're in third place in the cloud market space, right? So AWS is first, Azure is second, and then Google is in a distant third place, way back. So they're at $13 billion in revenue last year. If you were to take Microsoft and Google, they're closer to the like $55 to $60 billion a year mark. So they're at like 10 times the revenues of Google. So Google's really, really a distant third place, and they're playing catch up. And when you see them have a loss like that, this is where, like, if you're a CIO, you start to get a little nervous because Google cancels services all the time. And they say, Waze, we'll get rid of that.
Wave.
Wave. Sorry, Wave, not Waze. Waze is still there.
Waze is still
but they have plenty of things that they launch, or they'll launch them and then not improve upon them for 10 years, like Gmail or other products where they just kind of ignore them. The Google Calendar looks very 1999. And
I knew they made a wrong turn with the Google Turd.
Yeah.
It was a mistake.
That's a weird code name.
Yeah.
Weird code name.
Catchy, though.
I'll remember.
Kind of sticks.
Yeah,
it
does.
So anyhow, it is interesting to see numbers like these come out that they did make $13 billion in revenue, but once you factor in their cost and advertising and marketing and all the other things that go on top of it, they actually lost $5.6 billion, which to us sounds like a lot of money.
That's because that's a lot of money.
But not,
not
to them. To them, they'd have to lose like $1 trillion to really get upset about it. Yeah, they are rolling in it. So, we'll continue to see Google Cloud competing, but they're just not. It's just not going to take the market by storm anytime soon.
Well, it says in here too that they're investing heavily in sales staff, and that's part of the cost. So it could be that they're positioning themselves to make a big push in the future. Investing in new hardware and sales staff, things like that, where they can obviously depreciate those things over time in the future. But
I think in a way they're suffering from how they've handled Android over the years. Or really all of the Google services, where like you cannot contact a human being at Google. And if you post in their support forums, Google blatantly ignores all of their support forums. So like for 20 years now, Google has communicated this simple message of we hate our customers. And and that's just it. Like
message received.
Yeah, and there's no debate, there's no variation. It's consistent. They hate their customers across the entire board. And so it's hard for me to say like, I would want to run my business on their infrastructure. Because when things run right, you're fine, but when things start to mess up,
are they trying to like basically, I haven't used their cloud platform before. I've used Azure and I've used AWS, which seems pretty straightforward. Is it just that much worse, or why are people choosing those structures over Google, who's a pretty big entity?
Yeah, so it's not as feature-rich as AWS. Like AWS has 100 different services now, right? But Google heavily invested in Kubernetes, right? That came out of Google. So they've got all the automation platform in there for it. If you use Kubernetes, you could dive into Google Cloud right now, no problem. So they've got the technology and the core infrastructure that you need in the cloud. But the thing is, it's Google.
Yeah.
And they're late to the game. AWS is huge. Microsoft, if you take the Office 365 revenues and dump it in with Azure, Microsoft actually does more sales than AWS. But if you don't count Microsoft 365, right? If you just count the Azure piece, it's not. AWS is in the lead. So really, for most businesses, that's it. You choose between those two platforms. You don't think, I'm going to go with this distant third place. There's too much risk.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Plus, they hate you.
Yeah.
Don't be evil.
Yeah.
But this kind of reminds me of like things like the Zune or things from Microsoft, where hey, it's a great product, but it's so late to the market where everyone's already used to this other ecosystem, and so why would I move over there? It might be the best. Who knows?
Honestly,
no one's on it.
if everything what Don is talking about here, where you have so much more features with other platforms, even if they were to up their game and have parity with them, I still wouldn't go with Google because they hate me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if you have a track record of providing bad or non-existent customer support,
I will go with less features even for a good customer service experience.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's Azure's tagline.
Hey, we're not as good,
Yeah.
but we're way better when things go wrong.
But we're listening.
yeah.
If you enjoyed that segment, be sure to check out our entire podcast available in the playlist right here. And you can always subscribe to stay up to date with the latest tech news and other happenings in the IT world. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for new episodes. I hope to see you there.